Well, folks, it's happened again. Another Monday has snuck up on us. But the good news is that means a brand new episode of Hornets Daily. Welcome into your one stop shop for all things Charlotte Hornets. As always, represented by the good people over at Fan Arc, and I'm your host, Vance Ballard, but we all know by now you can call me VB. Want to thank everybody for joining, watching along with us today. Be sure if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, leave a like and a comment down in the comment section. Always fun reading through the chat, watching you guys interact with each other, and then getting to interact with you on my end as well, as we are continuing to grow this Hornets Daily family here on the program. Now, the summer of Trey Mann continues to heat up as the Hornets sixth man has signed another new deal this summer. We'll talk a little bit about that here on the program today. And should the Hornets be worried about losing Chris Jent? The assistant coach's name has been flying around connected to a new staff. We'll talk about what the Hornets should do to keep Chris Jent, and if they lose him, what does that mean for the coaching staff going forwards? The writers are at it again. They don't take weekends off. The rumor mill does not sleep, and they still are not satisfied with the current Hornets roster. The guys over at Hornets SI voiced their opinions this weekend about a new someone we've mentioned before, but about a new big man that the Hornets should bring in, what they should do, who that big man is. We'll talk about all of that on the show as well today. And in regards to the roster, we already know the guys that are already in Charlotte on the team. We know about the abundance, the log jam, whatever you want to call it, at the two-guard position. Who should be the starter there? Who's going to be the starter at that position? I'll tell you what I think Charles Lee and company should and are going to do opening night, but really it's just going to be laying out all the guards at that position and the possibilities of who could be the starter come opening night. If there's anything you know about us here on Hornets Daily, folks, this is not a beat around the bush podcast. We like to dive headfirst into the program, and that's exactly what we're going to do right now. As we mentioned, the summer of Trey Mann stays hot. The Hornets sixth man came out over the weekend that he has signed a deal with Reebok to wear Reebok shoes on the court this season. Now, this deal is very fitting to Trey Mann. He continues to add to the AI allure that he likes to carry himself around with. He's had some comparisons, not necessarily in the quality of his game, but the style of it. Nonetheless, we know about his fashion sense, the retro 90s, late 90s, early 2000s style outfits. So a Reebok deal fits right at home for what Trey Mann likes to present himself as and the way he likes to carry himself. A new deal for the Hornets sixth man. Now, Trey Mann joins Angel Reese as another Reebok under the quote-unquote leadership of Shaquille O'Neal, as he is the president of Reebok basketball operations over there. Mann joins Angel Reese in what is already a star-studded athletic lineup for the Reebok shoe company. Trey told Clutch Point's Chris Persinian, now I'm sure I'm butchering that, but I apologize, that he signed with Reebok because he wants the opportunity to build something. He wants to join a brand that not a lot of people are wearing, that used to be popular, but now has kind of lost its luster, and Mann wants to be responsible for building that back up in his own way with his own style. He credited his father for his throwback style, saying that he used to laugh at his dad growing up at all the things he was wearing, but now he's gone back and looked at the pictures of the stuff he wears now out in public, and he thinks, ooh, that's what my dad used to wear. Another quote from the article from Trey Mann. He said as well that Reebok was popping back then, which is when he was watching his dad dress and grow up and really learning his style from a young age. And in true Trey Mann form, one of his main reasons for signing was, quote, I wanted to do something that everyone else isn't doing. We know that is something Trey Mann focuses highly on with his outfit style, his choice of late 90s, early 2000s retro clothing, if you want to call it that. Now, unfortunately, I am old enough to remember when AI released his first shoes and the Reebok craze was going crazy. Trey Mann a little younger than me, but it's nice to see him staying in touch with the classic roots. It'll be interesting to watch what his shoes look like this year. If he gets his own Reebok shoe, that's still up in the air, yet to be determined. But the Hornets sixth man will have a little more flash, a little more flair, and an even deeper connection now to his hero, his idol, his basketball role model in Allen Iverson. Nice to see good things happening down there in Charlotte for the six-man Trey Man as he continues to sign new deals and have a successful summer, the summer of Trey Man, that is. We mentioned Chris Jent earlier in the show, another switching gears to an important decision, not a decision, but an important issue that the Hornets are now facing. Over the weekend, it was announced that Chris Jent is a leader in the clubhouse to become an assistant / offensive coordinator on Mike Brown's new staff with the New York Knicks. That would be an obvious blow to the Hornets coaching staff as Chris Jent comes in with the most experience on the coaching staff. He's held the role of assistant coach in the NBA since 2003. And I'm not sure what all would go into keeping Chris Jent, but I do know for a fact that a second-year head coach like Charles Lee cannot afford to lose any experience on the back end of his coaching staff, if at all possible, especially not 20-plus years of it with a guy like Chris Jent. Again, he's been in that role since 2003. He's had multiple stops all across the league, but most importantly, he is an offensive-minded coach who has been brought in to help fix the offensive problems with Charles Lee and his staff. So losing a guy like that would almost be a setback to the Hornets as they lose their offensive-minded coach. They lose a guy who's familiar with their young core, with their rookies that they brought in. As we mentioned, Jent was the Summer League head coach, winning the championship out there in Las Vegas. And unfortunately, it would add to a long to-do list still to be had out before the regular season by the Hornets. Again, I'm not sure how, but keeping Chris Jent would jump near the top of that list and become a high priority for the Hornets to do. They can't afford to lose any coaches at the moment, especially not one as experienced as Jent. Now, obviously, the Hornets can't really force him to stay, but they can do some things that'll keep him around. But it would be a massive blow to the offense before ever playing a game, an offense that has got a little bit of excitement behind it for the first time in a while, as the shooting on paper has definitely been increased with the additions made in the summertime. But losing a coach like Chris Jent could be a big blow to an offense, and bringing in a new guy would almost be a restart for the Hornets here in August, something you don't really want to have to do. With all the player moves that still need to be made as well, Charlotte has a lot to do on their to-do list. They need to keep Chris Jent around they need to do as much as they can to keep Chris Jent around, to take one thing off that list, to not add any more stress of a new addition, a roster cut, whatever that may be. Keeping the staff as together as possible is vital here in Charlotte, and if Jent is poached by the Knicks, that could be a big deal and a large role to fill. We'll keep an eye on that and see how that goes. Hopefully, Charlotte's able to keep the Summer League champion around and not lose him up to Mike Brown and the Knicks. Now, we talked as well about the experts and how the writers were staying busy over the weekend. No off time for them, even in the off season. The guys over at Hornets SI, Zach Roberts and Ryan Stano, to be exact, they wrote this week, shared their opinions on what they think the Hornets should and need to do at the big man position. Now, we talked last week at length about Moussa Dubate and his potential to become a starting big man in the NBA, a starting five in the NBA. There's people that we talked about last week that feel like that is the move for the Hornets. They should just let it ride out with what they have on the roster. Start Moussa and let him develop and learn his game that way. But not everyone is convinced of that. Again, Zach Roberts, Ryan Stano both voiced their opinions on why and how they think the Hornets should go out and acquire Nikola Vucevic from the Bulls. Now, this isn't a brand new rumor. Vucevic is actually somebody we've talked about a couple times on the program, but it does seem like now, here in early August, is when it's picking up the most steam that the Hornets should and may even go out and try to add Vucevic, who is in a contract dispute, probably won't be signed after this year with the Bulls. He is under contract with Chicago for this season, but definitely not trending towards being in Chicago any longer than that. So that's all the more reason that Charlotte could go out and make a move, trade for the big man out in Chicago as well. The 34-year-old or 35-year-old, I apologize, Vucevic would make an instant impact on both ends of the floor. He's not the greatest defender, but he would kind of be a step up from what the Hornets have in terms of what knowledge. Anyway, we know what Vucevic brings. There's still a lot of questions with Musa and Kalkbrenner as well, and Plumlee. Nothing to brag about on that end of the floor. We know what we are getting with Vucevic on the defensive end, and he would be a large improvement offensively at that center position, as he would immediately be the best shooter and probably the best rebounder on the roster as well. He's coming off of a year, Vucevic, that is, where he played in 73 games, averaging 18.5 points per game, 10 rebounds a game, and 3.5 assists per game. Now, his career numbers a little bit lower than that, so he had a good year last year, 17.2 points per game, right at 10 rebounds a game, and just under 3 assists per game. In his career defensively, he is averaging just under 1 block per game, 0.9 blocks per game is his exact average, but again, just under 1 per game. So he's capable on the defensive end, but he's not known as a lockdown anchor defender in the paint. But that does not seem to be exactly what Charlotte's going after anyway. None of the other additions this offseason have been world beaters on the defensive end of the floor. Colin Sexton, Spencer Dinwiddie, Pat Connaughton, a capable defender, but none of those guys are known for it. They're not all pro defenders by any means. Vucevic also would fall in that category, but he is capable down there, and he's a fantastic rebounder. He's also a great three-point shooter. He shot 40% from three as well, carries a career shooting percentage of 34% with him, so he would, again, instantly become the best offensive big man on the roster if Charlotte is able to go out and make that move, or does decide to go out and make that move for Vucevic. He would also allow for the young guys, Musa and Kalkbrenner, to not sit because they'd have to play, but to sit back for a little bit and not be thrust into the starting role, thrown to the wolves, if you will, as soon as they could be. The two-time All-Star Vucevic would not be a long-term answer for sure, as he is 35 and probably only has at best a handful of good years of basketball left under his belt. But he would allow for the young guys, the rookie Kalkbrenner and the young Diabate, to develop off the bench, to not necessarily have to deal with the pressure of being a starter in the NBA this early in their career right away. For Kalkbrenner, it would be a more than satisfactory stopgap out of Vucevic, and even a chance for the young guys to learn from him, watch his offensive game, and maybe pick up some things of their own, as we know that Musa still has some work to do offensively. Kalkbrenner still trying to figure out exactly where he's going to fit, both offensively and defensively in the NBA. We know he can shoot the basketball as well, so learning from a guy like Vucevic would only benefit Kalkbrenner's game, in my opinion. Now, if this move is possible, it gives Charlotte a little bit of breathing room at the 5, again, while not throwing the young guys right into the fire. The biggest issue with Vucevic, though, is that he is owed $21 million this year, so it would be a steep price tag to go out and get the big man out of Chicago. But if something can be worked out, it absolutely helps Charlotte. It would help Chicago out. It'd be a win for both teams, to be honest. Zach Roberts pitched what he thinks could be a potential package for Vucevic, where he says that Mason Plumlee, Josh Green, and up to 3 future second-round picks, probably 3, if we're being honest. The Bulls are expecting a first-round pick in the package for Vucevic, but Roberts thinks that potentially Mason Plumlee, Josh Green, and 3 future second-round picks could be enough to get Chicago to bite on that deal. It would clear some space for the Bulls salary-wise, as they would dump that $21 million salary from Vucevic while picking up more than reasonable salaries from Josh Green and Mason Plumlee. Now, when Josh Green gets healthy again, the Bulls will have also added a very competent wing player to their roster, so they get something out of it as well. Plumlee could continue to be, Plumlee would add veteran depth to the 5 position in Chicago, as they too are trying to get some young guys into NBA form and find out what exactly they're going to do at the big man position. So Plumlee wouldn't be not a star, not a big name, not a blockbuster trade by any means, but he could be beneficial out in Chicago. It could be a win for both sides, according to Zach Roberts, if the Hornets are able to make that move. They would get a much-needed piece at the center position. And again, the 35-year-old will not be the future here in Charlotte. Would he be a great bridge for a year, maybe 2, maybe 3, depends on how long Charlotte would want to keep him, how much good basketball he has left to play, and how much they develop the young guys behind him. If Musa and Kalkbrenner take that next step and do turn into guys who the Hornets think could be starters at the end of this season, then in just a 1-year deal for Vucevic would absolutely be beneficial, as he could help make the Hornets even more of a playoff-ready roster. I won't use the word contender by any means, but adding a guy like Vucevic definitely would turn some heads, draw some attention down to the Queen City, add some buzz, if you will, to the rest of this roster, and maybe take that and maybe be what would be required to take that next step and make the playoffs here in a downtrodden Eastern Conference this year. Again, that is still a lot left to be seen, a lot of questions left to answer. Do the Hornets make that move? They've still got some roster cuts to make on top of that, which we know it'll be interesting to sit back and watch what the Hornets continue to do this offseason and how they plan to finish, not filling out, but finish honing in, shaping up their roster before the regular season. Speaking of that roster before the regular season, there's some guys we already know are on it, and a lot of them play the guard position. The 2-guard position, to be exact, that's one of the more interesting spots on the roster, in my opinion. They clearly don't need to add anyone else, as Peterson, we know, has brought in an abundance of guards, both 1s and 2s, throughout the offseason. A lot of them could be put either place, but a lot of them are more traditional 2 guards as well. The Charlotte currently sits with 10 guards on its roster, and that does not include free agents Seth Curry, Wendell Moore Jr., or Con, and Con's not a free agent, but it also does not include Con Knipple, who is listed currently as a forward on the Hornets roster. Now, out of those 10 guards, at least 6 of them could probably make a case to be the 2-guard at any given moment on the floor, starter during the game, into the game, it doesn't matter. At least 6 of those guys you could probably make a case for them getting legitimate minutes at the 2-guard. But the question is, who is going to be the first one on the floor? Who's going to be that starter at the shooting guard position come opening night? Who's going to be playing alongside LaMelo Ball during the first game of the season? Now, from everything we can read so far, you guys are probably aware of this as well. Colin Sexton is the leader in the clubhouse right now to be that starting 2-guard. That probably makes the most sense. He's got the best offensive game. The fewest questions defensively come from Colin Sexton, maybe Spencer Dinwiddie in that regard, but we know what we're getting out of the veteran Colin Sexton on both ends of the floor. He's got a high-octane offensive ability. He provides very good quality shooting from beyond the arc and mid-range and at the rim as well. Colin Sexton, a proven offensive game in the NBA, proven veteran all around in the NBA. He probably makes the most sense. Again, he's the favorite to be the starter at the 2-guard position. But is that exactly what Charles Lee wants? Is that the route he's going to go? Spencer Dinwiddie also has a case, not as strong to be the starter at the 2 position, but he's got a lot of experience. He's an older veteran and would add that and would bring that experience to a young core, a young starting 5 that would more than likely, if it is Dinwiddie, that would be LaMelo, Spencer Dinwiddie, Brandon Miller, Miles Bridges, and as it sits right now, either Musa or Ryan Kalkbrenner. And a guy like Dinwiddie could really add some experience, bring some of that experience to a very young starting lineup, if that's the way that Charles Lee wants to go and bring Colin Sexton off the bench, allow him to kind of lead and be in charge, be the man on that second unit. Now, others, Nick Smith Jr., Pat Connaughton, we've talked about those. We mentioned them several times last week. They're more than likely not going to be on the roster on opening night, so I doubt they'll be the starters. We'll skip right over them as well. And Josh Green, another name who could definitely make the case for starting at that two-guard position, especially if Charles Lee wants to make Colin Sexton a six-man type of guy where he comes off the bench and bolsters that second unit. If that's the route, Josh Green could have potentially made a case for opening night starter, but we know that's not going to be possible as his shoulder surgery the timeline for that has been extended, and we don't exactly know when Green will come back. We also just talked about the possibility of him not being on the roster either if he's part of a trade package for Vucevic or anyone else out there. Now, the biggest question for me at this position is how long Charlotte is going to wait before they make the decision that Knipple needs to be in the starting lineup. And when that decision is made, where is he going to start? Who is going to be bumped back down to the bench? That, again, is where I feel Colin Sexton may be the man getting the short straw. I don't think you can afford to bring Brandon Miller off the bench. There's no way Con is going to take LaMelo's spot and play the point guard position either. I do believe that if the Hornets want to thrust the number 4 overall pick into the starting lineup, whether it be on opening night or further down the line in the regular season, that it would be Colin Sexton sent to the bench. Again, not a bad thing. Sexton could provide a fantastic uptick in production to the second unit. There would be no drop-off offensively when he came on the floor, especially if he came in for Knipple, who would still be trying to figure out exactly what his NBA game looks like as a rookie. There'd be no drop-off, no downgrade there from Sexton coming in. So the question is going to really be how long is Charles Lee and the Hornets going to wait before they make Con that starter at whatever position it may be. You also have to take into account that Brandon Miller can play the two-guard position. So if there is someone else Charles Lee wants to start at that 3, maybe if Knipple is supposed to play the 3, does Liam McNeely shock the world and earn himself a few starts at the 3 position? That would then bump Brandon Miller up to the 2, again sending Sexton or whoever that starter may be back to the bench. Again, Colin Sexton, we know, is the leader leader at the moment to be that starter at the 2. He's the favorite. He's the most likely option. He's probably the safest option to start at the 2, just because you know what you're going to get. The least amount of questions come from Colin Sexton and his game. But this 2-guard position is definitely one of the more interesting and intriguing positions to watch as we get closer to the preseason, move into the regular season here in Charlotte. Who's going to be that starter? Obviously, the Hornets still have some time to get together as a team, to practice, to go through training camp, preseason, this, that, and the other, before they have to actually make that decision. But it is still a decision that looms large in terms of the roster makeup and the depth chart. Who's going to be that starting 2? Is that something that's going to stay the same all season? Will it be more of a trial and error type of situation for Charles Lee? Is he going to try out different guys at the 2 until something hits, or will he make his decision and stick with it? All things to continue to watch for here as we progress through the summer into training camp and into the preseason. And we'll have it all for you right here on Hornets Daily. That's going to do it for today's show, folks. Thanks for watching again on this lovely Monday. Hopefully this will help you get through a long, dragging-out day, give you something to do while you sit in that cubicle and try to avoid working too hard and making it through another Monday here. As always, folks, thanks again for watching. Be sure to hit that subscribe button, leave a like and a comment down in the comment section, and we'll catch you right back here tomorrow on Hornets Daily.